Hi guys, Rilla here. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I review African literature. So I've been away for I think about 8 months now, and that was because I had to focus on my own book which just came out, and also I just needed to take a break. But I'm back, and my first book review of the year is going to be A Spell of Good Things, and this is by Ayobami Adebayo. So if you're not familiar, or if you recognize the name rather, she's the author of Stay With Me. And just to give you the synopsis of the book, I'll just read it out to you. Eniola is tall for his age, a boy who looks like a man. His father has lost his job, so Eniola spends his days running errands for the local tailor, collecting newspapers and begging, dreaming of a bright future. Uraola is a golden girl, the perfect child of a wealthy family. Now an exhausted young doctor in her first year of practice, she is beloved by Kunle, the volatile son of a family friend. When a local politician takes an interest in Eniola and sudden violence shatters a family party, Uraola and Eniola's lives become intertwined. In this breathtaking novel, Ayobami Adebayo shines a light on Nigeria, on the gaping divide between the haves and the have-nots, and the shared humanity that lives in between. So this book is solely or mainly focuses on Eniola and Uraola and how their lives actually end up intertwining. So we have Eniola, who is a young boy. He's around, I think he's between around 16, 17, and he comes from a quite poor family, but they did not start off poor. It was because of unfortunate events which happened. His father was a teacher, but he got laid off because the government decided that history was no longer a subject that was needed to be taught in school. So his father, who I actually have a grudge with, he's the reason why I really am rattled by this book. His father, because he was a history teacher and he believed that he wanted that kind of job where he had to wear a tie and a suit to go to work, like those respected kind of jobs. He ended up not doing anything at all, like to support his family, and that really strained his family to the point that they ended up having to beg in the streets. And his wife was the one who had to do everything. She literally ended up being the head of the family. She literally ended up having to make all the decisions, looking for ways to make money while we just laid in bed. Like literally would spend the whole day sleeping. Now at first I did understand that he got laid off, he was depressed, and I really sympathized with him. I was like, okay, you know what, I do understand, like the life that he thought he was going to have, it did not work out, but I was thinking, okay, you can always find another way to make money. Like his wife, she was trying. When I tell you that she was trying, she tried each and every single thing that could happen. Like they ended up having to beg, like on Sundays they would have to go to churches or other places to go and back. And the thing that annoyed me the most was that the father, he instead of him going to help or at least looking for a job to like do something, he would just make the signs for them. Like to say, let's say for example, Eniola, he's deaf and he can't talk, so he would write the signs and then give them the signs and then to say at home. And I was thinking, okay, there are so many things he could have done, but this actually amplified something that a lot of people have actually talked about, how in most African households, the mothers are usually the backbone of the family. They're the ones who go out of the way to make money, and some of the fathers in the house, they just stay there and then they're just called the men of the house when they actually don't provide at all. And this is something that I've witnessed myself back home and here in the UK. When it comes to some African families, it's the wife who has to look for ways to make money while the husband is just there being the husband. And then when it comes to talking, he's the one who says like I'm, or we. It's not like a we thing, it's like I'm the father of the house, I'm supposed to be making decisions, but you're actually not doing anything at all. So this actually amplified something that a lot of people don't usually talk about, but it was really amplified in this book, and I was really moved by it, a bit uncomfortable, because I was like, okay, this actually happens. And that is one of the major topics that came out, that in most households, African mothers are the ones who actually go above and beyond. It's like when they go to the markets and they're selling their vendors, they're doing this, they're doing that, they go out of the way to have the children, to feed the children. And the father, him just being there. And the other thing that annoyed me, like they had to pay rent. When the landlord came, he literally hid under the bed. That for me, I was just like, okay, now I'm not feeling sorry for you anymore, because he was like, when I say he was not doing anything, he was not moving. He was just staying in bed, literally doing nothing at all. He would just grunt, and that was it. He was not talking to anyone until Eniola got in trouble. That's all of a sudden he had a voice to say something, and he had the audacity to blame the wife for not looking after the son and not being aware what the son was doing while he was just there doing nothing. So that's one of the topics that came out. I'm so sorry, I'm all over the place. It's been a while since I've done a book review, but I'm gonna try and do like topic to topic. And the other topic that came out was to do with love, how it looks different for other people. So we have Raola, who's the golden child, like she's a middle child, and you know, she does everything that her parents ask of her to do. She's a doctor, she listens to what her mother says, and now she's about to get married to this man who has been approved by a family, because they come from a very rich family, and the family she's marrying into, they're well off, you know, they're politicians, and you know, they have prestige and all of that. So her mom, who's Yeye, she seems to be very much into this whole idea of the ideal marriage, having her children well off, which is good, but to the expense of her daughter, who was going through the most, like there's domestic violence in there. And what really got to me was how the mother really did not notice that was going on with the daughter, but because the daughter, she has the burden of having to please her parents. So I think that got in the way of everything. So she had to endure everything that was going on for her to be able to please the parents. But in the end, she ends up calling off the wedding, because the guy, he seemed like the perfect guy, you know, the body, everything, he comes from a good family, he has a good job, but he was so many red flags. Like I could tell from the start when he had to go to the hospital. She had a very busy day because she was like on call for like, I think like a 24 hours on call. And he was so concerned as to why did you not pick up my call? And she's like, I didn't pick up anyone's call, even my mom's. I didn't pick up her call. But he was so adamant, and he got upset, like he was sulking. And I was like, you know what? For me, that was the first red flag. Then I was like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe she's just like a character building of showing that, you know, sometimes men get emotional, which I do understand. But with this one, it was a bit too much. You get upset, and then it went from that to slapping to actually like hitting her. So you could actually gradually see how it led up to that, and was super jealous. And we also have like very strong characters like the sister. So Eniola's sister and Raola's sister, they're quite similar in this fact that they ask a lot of questions, which I really like. People who ask questions, you always have to know the why. Why do I have to do this? Why is this happening? And I think they were the strongest characters in the book, because they were grounded, even though those kind of characters in most African households, they are not seen as ideal, or they're the troublemakers, or you know, they don't have respect because you're asking why. Because sometimes you have to ask why. Bosola shared to ask why the parents were not doing anything about the school fees, why they had not paid the rent, why they were not doing anything to do that. And you know, it got to the point where the parents, they had to choose who to pay the fees for, and they ended up paying for her school fees. But she was quite upset about that, because they made her brother beg in the streets, and he brought in the most money, and then they ended up paying for someone else. And that really made Eniola switch. From then onwards, he just switched, and then he became rebellious. And it wasn't rebellious in the fact that he was disrespecting his family, but it was rebellious in the fact that now he felt he had to provide. He felt he had the task to provide for his family, while the father was just there not doing anything. And that, for me, I really blame the father for that. He failed his family dismally when it came to that, to providing his family, because the son, he ended up joining this corrupt politician, and he ended up doing some heinous things for him to be able to have money. And you're thinking, it's actually not the child's fault, because from the beginning he tried as much as he could. You know, he was like the golden child in Burawola's family. He was listening to his parents. He was not like Busola was asking questions, and Yola would just do without asking, which is the same as Burawala. And you kind of see how at the end that kind of thing actually ends up missing children, because they always have to trust in the parents doing the best they can, which is good, but to an extent it actually ends up depriving or not allowing you to fully express yourself and think for yourself, because it destroyed Raola. The fact that she ended up being with a guy who was very abusive, or in the name of listening to a mother. And then with Eniola, he was also listening to his mother, who would tell him everything will be fine, you know, we have to do this, we have to go begging, we have to do this. And he never asked a question until then. That's when he snapped. And I was like, you know what, fair, I do understand why he snapped. So I think as much as they were opposites, like Raola was from a rich family and Eniola was from a poor family, I think that shows that even in different classes, when it comes to pushing your children and then just not giving them the time or the space to actually voice their concerns, sometimes it pushes them to do the worst of the worst. And there's a contrast also, because Busola and Mutara, they're actually quite similar, because they ask the why, and in the families they were seen as if they're the ones who don't listen, they're the ones who are disrespectful, but they were not coming from that viewpoint. They wanted to understand why they have to do certain things. The other topic which came, actually I have to write this down, because I was just when I was reading this, I was just like, you know what, let me try and write as much as I could. There's education, how education is very important. I think in most African households, education is one of the most important things. You know, education is very fundamental. And there's also sisterhood. So Yeye and the sisters, that's the mother, Raola's mothers. You can see how the sisterhood was very strong. As much as they were different, there was a sisterhood between them, which helped them to be where they were. So the older sister, I think that was Auntie Biola, she made sure that his sisters were well off, they married well. So I think Yeye was trying to do the same for her children, but she didn't really consider how detrimental it would be, because even with the sisters, the men that they were married to, some of them they were fourth wives, some of them were sixth wives, some of them they did not even get along with their husbands, or in the name of we just married. So that actually, you know, shed light on that. And then there's also Raola and Mutara's sisterhood. It was a bit fractured, because Mutara, she witnessed Raola being slapped and she brought it up, and Raola was lying, saying, you know what, Mutara, she's always lying. And the thing is, Mutara already had a reputation of lying, so when she said it, it seemed as if, you know, that's just her, she's just lying. So that, I think the author did a really good job with that, because everyone now was against her, saying that's how she is, she always lies. So I think that was a very good style of writing, which I really like, because it makes the story a bit more intense. There was parenthood. I think I've covered that. As I said, I was ranting. I'm so sorry if this video is all over the place. I really enjoyed this book, but it really annoyed me because of the father, and also the ending. I thought I would know more of how exactly what happened, like the happily ever after or the never happily ever after. But the thing with African writers, really, I like how they leave you to kind of finish the story. Like you end up like thinking, okay, so what happened to Kunle and Raola? We know that they were not together anymore, but I was thinking how with the parents now, because after all that happens, we jump, the book ends like a year later with the memorial, and you know how now they're all different. Raola's family, they ended up finding the father was kidnapped, or finding the body of the father was kidnapped. So there's a lot. I think I've spoiled enough. I don't want to spoil anymore. And then with Eniola's family, because Busola ended up being taken, they both died, the father and Busola. But because obviously Raola's family, they came from a rich family, they were able to go and identify the body in the mortuary, whilst Eniola's family, after a year, they were still hopeful about that. So you can kind of see like the contrast when it comes to like the poor. They don't really get a chance. If someone goes missing, they might not get the opportunity to go and identify a body at the mortuary because of funds, and also the reach they get closure. So that also stood up for me. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I can say. I am so sorry. I'm usually good at book reviews, but I think it's because it's been a long time, but I'll try my best with the next books. I think I'm getting into reading again because I was in a reading slump for quite a long time, so I'm trying to get into reading again and doing videos for you guys. And if you're not satisfied by this video, there's so many other book reviews which have to do with a spell of good things. I think those might actually be able to help you if you feel like this one is all over the place, which I do apologize, but that just shows you that even for us book reviewers, sometimes it gets a bit hard to sit in front of the camera and talk about books, because sometimes I'm like, I read this book, but all of a sudden it's like I've never read this book before, because everything that just goes out because I'm sitting in front of the camera. But I think it's just me trying to get back into book reviewing. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. My next video is going to be better. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and God bless. Oh yeah, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. That'll actually mean a lot. Bye.